Hello, my fellow Muppets, and all those who follow Muppetry. My name is King Boomer, and welcome back to the channel. How you guys doing today? I hope you had a good weekend. I'm going to do a reaction video. I just got done doing a reaction video to James Acaster talking about the British Empire, and while I was watching that, I noticed in my suggested videos in the right-hand feed, Knowledgia, who I recently subscribed to after doing that one reaction video. About kind of like the dark ages of Great Britain, in particular how England was formed. So you guys know I love history, so this isn't going to be much of a comedy one, although it can be. Sometimes history's funny. But as soon as I saw this one, I was like, I gotta watch this, and why not do a reaction to it, right? I love doing these. Even though the comedy is so much fun, I love taking a break and doing a reaction to just general history in particular. One thing about the British Empire, though, I know a lot more than the average American about the British Empire. However, I think one could spend 5 lifetimes studying the British Empire and still not learn everything. It's the history of it is that vast. Just like the British Empire itself was vast. The sun never sets on the British Empire, as people would say back in the day. So this should be interesting. I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm certainly excited. Hop on over to Knowledgia and subscribe to them. You're going to get great history videos for those history lovers like myself. So anyway, let's learn a little bit. Here we go. And sometimes when I do these history reaction videos, some people point out that sometimes the people doing the history videos, it doesn't happen often, but sometimes they get things wrong. So if you think there's something wrong in there, let me know about that too. Here we go, folks. With brute force, that's how.
The British Empire may not have technically ruled the world,
Look at that.
but it was, in fact, the largest empire to exist at any point throughout history. Reaching across the globe and carrying on over multiple centuries, the British Empire owes its success and ability to expand so widely. The geographical position of Great Britain served as a major advantage to the growing empire.
Yes,
Given that the nation was an island, the likelihood of being invaded or conquered was somewhat lower than a country that was surrounded on all sides by foreign powers. Although Britain was not completely immune to incursions, it definitely benefited geographically, both in terms of external threats and when it came to any border disputes. Britain had a pretty clear and straightforward border between itself and any other nations. While Scotland and England split the landmass that was bilaterally united with the ascension of Scotland's King James VI to the throne of England in 1603, both states were
I like how they just did that, you know, blended the English and Scottish flags together, which is why that's the flag. I like that, but I've heard some people, at least here in the States, they'd be like, why does England have their own flag and Scotland have their own flag? Well, because they're their own country. They're just part of a political union called the United Kingdom. So
make up the nation of Great Britain by 1707, sharing their outward borders with nothing but the North Atlantic Ocean and the North Sea. This open position, with easy access for maritime expeditions, also gave Great Britain an upper hand when it came to reaching other countries and continents. Needing only to cross over foreign land when they wished to reach countries more inward on their continent, the Brits were able to sail to just about any coastal nation without much resistance. Still, oceanic adventures would not have been so effortless for the British Empire without a strong naval fleet. This is where the size and power of the Royal Navy became a center point of British success. While Great Britain did not always control the world's oceans, The reason they began to skyrocket as an unignorable maritime power by the 18th century is largely due to the fact that they invested more money in ships and guns than other naval forces. The government and citizens of the British Empire truly believed that the future of their wealth was to be found through the ocean. Recognizing the importance of overseas...
I like how they point directly at the United States of America. All right. No, but I mean, you guys used to own us at one point, so...
trade, as well as a fleet that could also defend their land if ever required, the Brits made sure to adequately fund the Royal Navy. The Empire's focus on trade additionally contributed vastly to its triumphant transcontinental growth. Intent more on gaining wealth and increasing trade than on consolidating power through conquest, the Brits were able to create a more desirable environment for others to become a part of. After the successful colonization attempts in North America and the West Indies during the 1600s, the British Empire began to establish a commercial system that allowed for exponential success within Great Britain and its overseas territories. Colonies were granted monopolies for their products in the British market, and therefore were to conduct trade via British ships. In 1651, the Navigation Act would prompt the development of a closed economy between the Empire and its colonies, thus creating a system where all colonial imports were required to come from Great Britain, and all colonial exports were to be sent directly to the British market by the way of British ships.
Yeah, that was a very contentious act. That was like the start of the problems that the colonies had with the motherland, I guess you would say. Navigation Act. Eventually, the Americans would have problems with that.
During the same century, the British East India Company was established as a means of trade between Great Britain, East Asia, Southeast Asia, and India. Initially focused on the spice trade, the East India Company later incorporated other goods such as silk, cotton, tea, opium, and more. Politics made its way into the company later on, despite the origin being purely based on establishing more trade opportunities. Driven limitlessly by the concept of controlling a global trade market, the British Empire continued to extend its reach across the continents of Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, and the Americas. While the process of colonization...
1820? They gotta have more than that in 1820, I would imagine. I thought the height of the British Empire was in the 1800s. Well, maybe they're getting there. I'm not sure, but I thought that they would have more control over just these areas at this point.
Varied from territory to territory. One thing that remained consistent was the form in which these expeditions began. Unlike other empires who chose to expand through the use of military might and sovereign claims to power, the British facilitated most of their expansion through the establishment of trading posts and systems. Nonetheless, the British Empire was not a completely...
Want to trade, I might invade you if you don't want, with a smiley face. You will do that anyway, but sure. See, I told you there might be some humor in there. Although it's it's a little bit sadistic, the humor, but yeah, I mean, they're not wrong here.
Non-violent authority. On top of the Anglo-Dutch and Anglo-Spanish wars near the start of British expansion, the Empire also engaged in conflict with its American colonies during the American Revolutionary War, later followed by the dissension in India, succeeding the decline of the Mughal Empire, and leaving the British East India Company as a prominent political power in the region. The presence of Britain in India was also notably more forceful than some of their other trade-focused enclaves.
Yeah, that's true.
Demonstrated by the expansion of the East India Company's power through the threat of violence against those who protested. The continued tensions between the British and French were no longer secluded in India either, as the 7 Years' War erupted in 1756.
The 7 Years' War, known here in the United States as the French and Indian War, where we fought with you guys and then short time later, we would fight against you. But this, I think, in particular, the American Revolution was the spark that started fanning the flames towards revolution. Was immediately at the end of the 7 Years' War, or the French and Indian War as it's known here. A lot of the problems that the colonists had with the British Empire were seeded when this war was coming to a close, because the British were asking for the colonists to pay for the cost of the war, because the cost of the war was immense. I can't remember exactly how immense, but I know it was immense. But that's where all the problems started with the colonists. And as a consequence, they decided to throw your tea in the Boston Harbor, among other things.
Lasting until the Treaty of Paris was signed in 1763, leaving Britain as the leading power across India and the world's oceans. When the American Revolutionary War came in 1775, after the British Empire responded to the no taxation without representation movement of the Americans by sending troops to try and subdue the colonies, France and Spain chose once again to go to war with Britain, now as allies of the newly declared United States.
And if that hadn't have happened, by the way, if France and Spain, and I also think the Netherlands sent us pretty significant amounts of money. I'm sure there's one or two other nations in there that helped us out, but France in particular, France was the one who sent by far the most troops and ships in support. Spain helped us out a little bit too, but France being the number one contributor. But if those nations had not contributed to the war effort against the British Empire for the colonists, then I wouldn't be talking to you right now, because the colonists would not have won. Without their support, it's all for naught. The colonists, I don't think, even would have stood a chance to win that war. So having foreign help when you're trying to gain independence is almost a must, I would say, especially in this situation. I mean, at the time, the colonists are going up against the most powerful nation that ever walked the face of the earth. So you need foreign assistance to get something like this done. Which a lot of Americans, when they talk of this particular period in history, they usually take that for granted. I don't. I recognize the assistance that other nations gave us, and I guess I should thank them for it. But, it's not, I wasn't alive during that time, so.
In 1783, at the Peace of Paris, the British Empire was forced to acknowledge America.
Oh, this is a great picture, by the way. You see Benjamin Franklin and John Adams. The other three names escape me, though, at this point. I think one of them was Benjamin Rush. I could be wrong. But this particular painting was set in London, I believe, or just outside London. So somebody actually painted this. The Americans in this painting posed for it. But you notice on the right side that it's unfinished, and it's because the British signees of the peace treaty refused to pose for this painting. They refused to pose for it, and it'd be easy to make fun of them for it, but I don't blame them. I mean, why would you want to pose for that when you just gave away your most profitable colonies in the world, as Jeremy Clarkson would like to say? So I don't really blame them, but that's just a little fact that I know of, where they refused to pose for the painting that commemorated the signing of the peace treaty between the newly formed United States and the Kingdom of Great Britain. The Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland at this point, I think, right? When did Ireland come into the fold? Maybe that's, I forget which year they came into the fold, where they were part of the Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. Maybe somebody can let me know about that.
Independence in turn relinquishing any control over their former colonies. Devising a new strategy after such a drastic loss of territory, Great Britain now turned its attention toward the continents of Asia, Africa, and Australia, marketing what some historians call the beginning of the Second British Empire. Though trade between the United States and Great Britain actually continued after the installation of independence, the Empire chose to utilize the uncolonized coasts of Australia, which had been discovered by a Dutch explorer, Willem Janszoon, in 1606, and later claimed for the British Crown by James Cook in 1770 under the name of New South Wales, still feeding their fresh...
Oh, I didn't know that. New South Wales. So that's what the initial colony was called? I did not know that. See, anytime you watch one of these videos, you always learn something new, and that's why I love doing these.
And later claimed for the British Crown by James Cook in 1770 under the name of New South Wales. Still feeding their fresh craving for expansion in South Asia, the British suddenly engaged in a series of conflicts after the Battle of Plassey, which had occurred in 1757. By 1774, the British Empire took on a chain of attacks. The Anglo-Mysore Wars were fought until 1799, followed by clashes with the Pindaris. Attacks on places like Sindh and Burma also accelerated the new consolidation efforts of the British East India Company, on top of what was referred to as the Doctrine Lapse, where the Brits forbid the ascension to the throne of any Hindu ruler if they were not the natural heir. Once the current Hindu leader either died or was removed in some way, the British would occupy his state and gain control. These acts by the British Empire, combined with other forms of forced westernization of the Hindus, led to the Sepoy Mutiny of 1857 to 1859. Tired of the current heavy-handed British rule, the Indian troops of Meru sparked a rebellion that would spread throughout the nation. Peace was finally declared in July of 1859, and the British East India Company was scrapped. Although the Empire maintained a level of control under the Crown until 1947. During this span of time, Great Britain set about making its presence better known in Africa as well. Although the Royal African Company had been established back in the 17th century, finding ample profit in the slave trade until its abolition in...
Actually, when you read history here in the United States, the East India Company is mentioned a lot when you read about history during this time. But the, what was it, the Royal Africa Company?
Although the Royal African Company...
the Royal African Company. You don't hear much about them when we read history about the British Empire over here, at least not to my knowledge. They mention the East India Company like constantly, like it's pounded into your head. But the Royal African Company, it doesn't get mentioned at all, at least I don't think. I was aware of its existence, but not until more recently, like I had to learn that on my own. I always thought it was the Royal Africa Company, not the Royal African. Maybe I'm hearing things. Let's hear it one more time.
During this span of time, Great Britain set about making its presence better known in Africa as well. Although the Royal African Company had been established back in the 17th century, finding ample profit in the slave trade until its abolition in 1807, it was not until the 19th century that the Brits realized the potential benefit of forming a trade route across Africa, with its eyes set on establishing outposts spanning from Egypt down to the southern half of the continent. The British Empire found itself in a race against the other growing European powers, such as Italy and Germany, which eventually led to the Berlin Conference. The conference, which occurred in 1884, was intended to create some harmony between the competing colonizers. Great Britain was ultimately...
I don't think it did that. Very soon, in terms of history, very soon, there would be 2 world wars that proved otherwise. But yeah, I just find the irony in that statement.
The conference, which occurred in 1884, was intended to create some harmony between the competing colonizers. Great Britain was ultimately awarded most of northeastern Africa and all of southern Africa, meaning that at its peak in the continent, the British Empire ruled over approximately 30% of the African population. Globally, at the height of Britain's domination, it controlled roughly 22 to 25% of the world's land surface, and by 1938, governed around 20% of the world's population. This remarkable prosperity was accomplished through a geographical advantage, supreme naval might, and the strategic focus on trade and wealth over bullish sovereign power for the sake of an emperor.
Very good video. Thank you, Knowledgia. I hope I'm saying that right. Guys, go hop on. If you like history, this is a great channel that somebody... I discovered it through a video suggestion to react to by one of the subscribers on this channel. So I can't remember the name of the person that did it, but thank you very much, because this channel is great. I'd like to start a channel like this. I just don't know how I would do that, because I'm so inept at when it comes to dealing with and using technology, or I wouldn't know where to start in terms of, you know, cartoons or things like that. But if I wasn't doing this reaction channel, the first thing I would try to do is do a history type channel like this with images and cartoon drawings and things of that nature, and maps where you move around and it highlights things. I mean, I just think these channels like this are some of my favorite channels to find on YouTube. So thank you, Knowledgia. I appreciate your hard work. It's excellent, and I couldn't praise you more. But I learned a few things in this video. It's remarkable, the British Empire, and you know, I'll say it again. I said at the beginning of the intro, you know, you could spend 5 lifetimes learning about the British Empire, and you would still not learn everything, because it's just, there's so much history behind it. It actually makes me want to learn more about the history of the British Empire in India, because I do know some things, but watching this, you know, my timelines are off, and you know, that's just an interesting specific part of the British Empire that's that I could probably learn a lot more about. The crown jewel of the British Empire being India. So that was the part that probably piqued my interest the most. I hope you guys found some of my insight interesting, particularly that painting. The names of the 3 other guys in the painting are escaping me right now. I used to know who they were, but they were the signees of that peace treaty between the newly formed United States and the Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. So anyway, I hope you guys like that. Like, subscribe, do whatever you guys want. If you want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comments. If not, let me know in the comments as well. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you learned some things. I certainly did. And you all have a great day today. And stay safe out there. All right, Muppets, I'll see you guys for some more reaction videos soon. Peace.